It's even more unkept now, but I think it should hopefully clear up here in just a few moments. A lot of bugs. I brought 2 water bottles this big, and this is all I've got left. I will be honest, now I have no idea where I am.
Day 3 of my hike through Latvia, and I had already been hiking through the countryside, past farmhouses, and down country roads. Heck, I had even already experienced several minor walks through the woods already. But today, I would be spending as much time as possible exploring the genuine Latvian wilderness. For this excursion, I would be taking a 4-hour-long hiking trail just north of Melcheri. As you can imagine, however, as has been the theme with these videos, things would go just slightly awry.
Alright, currently over an hour in, and I've actually found a bridge, which is nice. This is a really nice trail, very hard to navigate through at times, so I've gotten lost a few times. But there's also this lovely little creek here. It's quite hot out. If that weren't enough, my shoes are also soaking wet, covered in mud, but it's all part of the fun.
All part of the fun indeed, but little did I know it, that fun wouldn't last 3 more hours like I had anticipated, but would take more like 5 more hours. Oh, you poor innocent person. But in the meantime, plenty of nature shots.
Now that is really pretty.
I would actually see a lot of pretty interesting flora and fauna. Nothing I could identify, but I just thought it was really cool to be out in the woods and actually seeing all of this firsthand.
Now we're well off the beaten path. Still technically the trail, but I take it no one's really been here in a while. Just a feeling, you know, oh my god.
If it wasn't obvious already from my heavy breathing, I was starting to think that maybe I was a little bit unprepared.
This is pretty much the trail, quote unquote. But it's really nice, really pretty. Honestly, I would highly recommend to anyone who's ever out here. It's about a 4-hour hike in total, was what I was told. So I'm about halfway through it now. I do have only like 1/4 of my water left because it is quite hot out today. So I'm going to need to start conserving that better. Hopefully there's a well or something that I can use further up ahead.
Although in all seriousness, as grueling as some parts of the hike had been up to this point, I was still enjoying it quite well.
It's even more unkept now.
My main concern at this point was either finding more water or a brief place to rest.
That's better. Alright, that was 10 minutes of long trudge through the brush. And no, here's more. Okay. There's this nice little creek though.
But the view was definitely worth it, in my opinion at least.
I mean, I've hiked through brush before. This is some of the more dense brush in my life, in my experience, I think. I mean, this is crazy. The only way I can see the trail, oh boy, as I was saying, the only way I can see the trail is just by looking at my feet and seeing where it's been trampled. Now, I've already lost it twice, and that was terrifying, but I hope I don't lose it again. The real danger is if there are any wasps or bees' nests that I don't see and I step on, because that would be terrifying. Like, look, where would I go?
However, having earlier heard from the owner of my hotel that the view later on in the trail was definitely worth it, I decided to keep going forward.
You never believe what's in front of me right now. Open land. For like 15 feet, but...
Not to mention that the river looked really pretty as well. Ironic considering that I needed more water.
I brought 2 water bottles this big. And this is all I've got left for the last hour and a half, so I'm gonna have to conserve a bit better, I think. Holy smokes, look at this. There's a massive cliff. Try and get a closer look at it in a sec. Okay. That's pretty cool. I'm down by the bank of the river now, and there's a cliff. Pretty massive.
I decided to take the opportunity and cool down a bit. Looking back, this looks kind of silly of me. I promise I wasn't trying to look like some survivor man. I just desperately wanted to cool off.
Now here's where it gets funny.
Afterward, I kept trudging forward, my main goal being to find water. I don't really know exactly what I was looking for, but honestly, any sort of well or water pump would have been a very welcome sight. Of course, me being me, I kept getting distracted by every little thing I saw, including even the smallest mushrooms. So yeah, definitely not much of a survivalist, am I? But eventually I did find houses. I really didn't want to disturb anybody, but at this point I was extraordinarily thirsty, and I realized that I would not be able to complete the hike safely without acquiring more water somehow. Besides, I was only looking for directions to water.
I'm gonna ask this man up here. Maybe they know, who knows? All right, so I didn't document much because I've kept getting this message the entire time I've been out here.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. I had very little access to my iPhone throughout most of this.
So basically, just to recap, I couldn't find water. I did end up asking that those people at the camper, and they ended up being the nicest people ever. Both were Latvian. I was essentially asking them if they knew where I could find water. And after a very nice conversation with them, they were very friendly, very curious about where I was from, why I was hiking out here. They told me that at the house just adjacent to where they were, I would be able to find water. And sure enough, it was sort of like a pattern. I showed up at the house. The woman was very nice. She let me inside her house. She let me fill up my water at the tap, and I'm very glad that she did, because look, I'm almost completely done with the first bottle. I was so thirsty. And of course I offered to pay her, and she wouldn't accept. She once again asked where I was from, and I said the United States, and in her own words, she said that she had never had guests before from so far away. So
Okay, let me basically reiterate everything that happened. I wasn't directly asking people for water. I was just asking for directions. Anywhere that I could be pointed to where I could buy water, where I could find water. Maybe a well, maybe a small convenience store out in the country road or something like that. But no, these people just straight up invited me into their home and allowed me to fill my water bottle in their kitchen sink, which is something that was incomprehensibly nice.
I can say one thing for sure. The people in Latvia are undoubtedly some of the nicest and most kind-hearted people I've ever met. They're extremely caring and were more than willing to help me out, even though they didn't know me at all. I was just some guy walking out of the woods. And they let me into their house. They let me fill up my bottle, and both of them, of course. And I can say it was a very nice experience. I'm glad I'm in a country with such a friendly people. But now it's on with the hike.
So press on I did, walking once again into the woods.
Okay, so this is really cool, and this is a really interesting cultural aspect of being in Latvia. Has been foraging for mushrooms. Of course, this isn't as common in the United States. It is still something that's practiced, but those are the exact same mushrooms I see sold at the market in Riga. I've been seeing them throughout this entire hike. They really grow everywhere around here, and I think it's really cool that they're so incorporated into the local cuisine.
As I walked, the terrain gradually became less wood-like and more like an open field.
Just for those wondering, I'm not trampling through some poor farmer's crops. This is a path. There was signage, albeit it is a very narrow one. Oh, here we go. This is a bit better. Go. Still got a ways to go, but it's not too bad. The view is quite nice, as I keep saying. I haven't drilled the message down enough. This is a very pretty country. I would still, in spite of all of the insects and the very narrow paths, and the times I almost slipped and fell into the creek, and this walking stick saved me from that. Would highly recommend visiting this place, hiking trails like this. I mean, this has been incredible for me. I mean, look at that. And that cliff too, that's so pretty.
Needless to say, it was a cool view, and I was glad I had hiked all the way out here.
It's a very bouncy, rickety bridge, but it's pretty cool. As you can see, there's a few other people here, some campers. And it looks like there's a stairway to the top of the cliff, so let's find out what we can see.
Okay, so hiking this stairway actually took me forever. I was pretty winded by that point.
I severely underestimated the duration of that climb.
So was the view worth it? Well, I'll let you be the judge of that. I thought this was a good place to sit and eat lunch. I really needed a break, and that way I could enjoy the view.
Now, I still need to push on because I have a train to catch back to Riga in about 4 hours. So I don't want to take a break for too long. Then it will be a lot harder to keep going.
So I proceeded down the stairs, trying to get back to the main path.
This is so much easier on the way down.
Of course, I stayed long enough to take a few more scenic shots. I had already hiked all the way out here, so I definitely wanted to capture as much of it on camera as I could. But eventually, I did get back onto the path, or so I thought.
So got a little turned around. I think I'm back on track now. I will say though, it is very disorienting sometimes. I think I know where I made a wrong turn, and time to press onwards.
As it turned out, I had no clue where that wrong turn was.
Right, I will be honest. Now I have no idea where I am.
I had found myself in the middle of an empty field.
Well, it's a bit of a hike, but as I can't seem to find a road, it seems like the best thing for me to do now would be to go backtrack a little, and ask some other hikers. Good photo opportunities at the very least. You know, it is what it is. Just wandering through rural Latvia. Is that any clue where you are?
Thankfully, I eventually did see some signage.
We've done it. We've found the beaten path. Now the other thing is, I can't just Google Maps it because I really only have service out here like half the time. I do have photographs of maps, but as it turns out, I'm not the best cartographer, which should be a sin considering that I'm a historian. But here we are. There's the bridge. Here we go.
At this point, it was getting late, and I was worried I would miss my train, so rather than pursuing the hiking trail, I decided to simply follow the country dirt roads until I made it back to Meltry.
Just a little bit longer. I can see the sign right up ahead, and that should indicate the next road. I say should as if I don't know it's a yield sign. Holy smokes, this country is beautiful. Yep, this is it. Long trek ahead though.
One thing I had begun to notice about the country roads in Latvia was that, at least regarding the ones I had seen, they were usually pretty shaded, which was really nice. What's really interesting is that in Eastern European countries, contrary to the United States, a lot of farming work takes place in the summer as opposed to just the autumn. I continued walking for about an hour and a half more until I finally managed to reach my hotel in Meltry. And let me be frank, by this point I was absolutely exhausted. I mean, I had been walking now for around 6 hours with minimal food and, as you could see, limited water as well. And I was quite relieved when I finally made it. I waited at the bus stop in Meltry for the bus that would finally take me back to Sessis, where I would catch my train. And when I finally made it back to Sessis, I bought so much food, guys. I was so hungry. But overall, in the course of the weekend, I had seen and done more than I had ever really hoped to. The countryside was absolutely beautiful. The Latvian people are, once again, some of the nicest and also just most kind-hearted and fun-loving people I've ever really encountered. I think that this country has so much to offer, and I was only hiking through a small portion of this very culturally rich area. Although, doing the math, I had walked over 120,000 steps just during that weekend. Needless to say, I was ready to rest on my overcrowded train back to Riga. And thus ends another adventure. Thank you all for tagging along with me, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.
Freight train, going so fast. Freight train, going so fast. I don't know what train he's on. Won't you tell me where he's gone? Don't know where he's heading for, what he's done against the law. Got no future, got no hope, just nothing but the road. Freight train, going so fast. Freight train.